Well, I guess this is another video about my favourite topic, multi-blind. So this video isn't about how to do multi-blind, it's not about how to get better at multi-blind necessarily, but it's how to get a good result in an official competition, which is kind of a different thing. I probably shouldn't have to say all of these things, a lot of it's just common sense, but maybe there'll be something that you hadn't really thought about, so hopefully it's helpful to someone. So firstly, you probably should practice at home before you do multi-blind in a competition. There are some people who enter multi-blind at a competition, and the last time they did multi-blind was at the last competition that they did multi-blind in. Strangely, there might be a couple of advantages to not practicing. If you haven't done multi-blind recently, your brain will be more fresh, like you won't be tired out from practicing too much. And also you won't be expecting a good result because you know you haven't practiced and you're probably not going to do very well, so you're not going to be nervous. So here's some results from a competition in 2024. Lennon Hughes got a 14 out of 14 without practicing at all, but this only works if at some point in the past you did practice multi-blind a lot, so you've still got the skills. But if you do care about multi-blind and you want to improve your results, you probably should practice at home first. So it is actually quite hard to get a good result in competition because the competition environment is usually more difficult than at home. So if you're aiming for a particular result, you probably want to be able to do it at home first multiple times, because the result you get in competition is probably going to be average or maybe slightly worse than average for what you would get at home. So yeah, you should be getting better results at home than what you would hope to get in competition. So in competition, it's usually a good idea to attempt a safer number where you're not going to be worried about hitting the time limit, leave some room for error, and you can probably be more careful and aim for higher accuracy. So for example, if your goal is to get a good attempt with 12 cubes, practice at home with 16 cubes, and then 12 cubes will feel easier and you can be more careful. So what should you practice? You should be trying to make every aspect of multi-blind as brainless and automatic as you can, so that you can just focus on your memorization and don't have to think too hard about all the other things. So tracing and your letter pair words and your algorithms, all of that should be automatic. And also, you should find out what your weaknesses are and work on your weaknesses. For example, if you're worried about speed, if you think you're in danger of hitting the time limit, you could attempt less cubes, or you could work on improving your speed. One of the best ways to do that is to do a lot of three blind. If you struggle with the mental stamina of concentrating for a whole hour, you should do some attempts with more cubes than what you can do within an hour. It'll take longer than an hour, but when you go back to your smaller number, it will feel easier. If you're struggling with remembering everything, have a look at your review system. Is it good? And also your letter pair words. Are your words memorable? So I've just been talking about just general multi-blind practice, but you should do some practice which is more specifically targeted for competition results. So you can ask yourself, what is it about competitions that makes them harder than your attempts at home? For me, and probably for many people, the hard thing about competitions is being able to focus on your memorization, specifically in a different environment that has more distractions than at home. So one thing I do to practice for that is to practice with intentional visual distractions. So you can see here, I'm doing multi-blind and I've got some YouTube videos on the screen there, which is quite distracting, but it helps, if you practice like that, it helps you to deal with that visual distraction. So apart from practicing these things, there are some other things you can do to prepare yourself for a competition. So not really mental freshness, but memory palace freshness. It's a good idea to have multiple memory palaces. I've got 3 different memory palaces at least. And pick one that you're going to use in competition in advance, and don't use that memory palace for a week or maybe even 2 weeks before the competition. Then it'll be fresh and you won't get confused by what you've memorized in there recently. In the meantime, you can practice with your other memory palaces if you have more than 2. Probably don't do any big attempts the few days before the competition. You don't want to be mentally fatigued. Yeah, and just have a break. Go outside, touch grass, as the kids say, apparently. If you have a stressful job, you can maybe have time off work for the day or two before the competition. It's probably not necessary for most people, but for me, it really helps. I actually can't do a good multi-blind attempt if I've been at work the day before the competition. Just general health stuff like eating healthy, sleeping well. Sleep is actually very important. If your multi-blind attempt is first thing in the morning, go to bed early, get as much sleep as you can. But also in the morning, you don't want to be sleepy, so you want to be fully alert. So if you just got out of bed, your brain is probably not fully woken up yet. So it can be helpful to do some exercise in the morning, like just to fully wake yourself up. And even like a bit of adrenaline helps. Like my best competition attempt, I was actually slightly stressed because my camera, the battery was on 0%. I don't know why. Like I'd plugged it in, but it didn't charge. So I had to rush around to find an extension cord, and so that I could plug it in for filming my attempt, which was slightly stressful, but it was actually probably helpful to, be fully alert and woken up. So in a competition, the most important thing is to be able to focus fully on your memo. I've got a theory why multi-blind is hard at competitions. When you're at a competition, your senses are kind of more heightened about your surroundings. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. There's people everywhere. You've got to be really sort of on your toes and present in your physical location. That actually makes it kind of difficult to sort of imagine or visualize other locations like your memory palace, I feel. Maybe it's using up your spatial awareness brain cells or whatever. So it takes more effort to sort of imagine or visualize your memory palace and sort of ignore your actual physical surroundings. So it really helps to like try quite hard to think about your memory palace and visualize it as vividly as you can before your attempt when you're at the competition. Try to focus on your memory palace and forget about your actual physical surroundings. So, just go over the memory palace in your mind maybe a few times. Even the night before, I think it actually helps to, when you're in bed the night before, maybe struggling to sleep. You know how most people count sheep to go to sleep? Obviously, everyone does that, right? Bert's got a good tutorial about that, which I'll just insert here.
Count sheep? What do you mean count sheep?
I mean, just lie there and count sheep. Imagine them one at a time until they get so sleepy you just fall asleep, okay?
So I think instead of counting sheep to go to sleep, you can actually think about your memory palace, go through your memory palace, when you're in bed. During the attempt, if you're a bit nervous, it might make you memorize faster than usual. That can be a problem because then your memory doesn't stick as well. So just try and slow down, don't rush. Remember to keep breathing, just chill out, just relax. Some competitions have multi-blind in the schedule somewhere, which is not great. So if multi-blind is at the end of the day, I'm always really tired at the end of the day, and multi-blind is not good at the end of the day for me. And if it's in a big hall, same as all the other events, if there's people walking around and watching you, that can be really distracting. Because sometimes the competition organisers are not really prioritising multi-blind. They're not really aware of what are the best ways to make conditions good for multi-blind. You can talk to your competition organisers just so they know the kind of things that are good or bad for multi-blind competitors. But what is good for you might not be the same for everyone. So for me, the ideal competition for multi-blind is doing multi-blind first thing in the morning, in a small room which is very quiet, no people spectating, and everyone facing the wall, so you don't see anything else. You just see a wall in front of you. That's good conditions, I think. But sometimes you're not able to do anything about how the competition is organised. You just have to deal with it the best you can. So a couple of things you can do. look at the schedule in advance. So if multi-blind is at the end of the day, you know you're going to be tired, you can consider not entering every event. Maybe like if Megaminx is before multi-blind and you care more about multi-blind, just don't enter Megaminx and just have a break, maybe go and take a nap. If there's lots of distractions like people walking around and just visually a difficult environment, you can use the distraction blocking goggles. I've got really crappy ones, but they actually help. Often the tables at competitions are slippery, so if you bump your cubes when you're blindfolded, you just mess everything up, and that's just ruining your attempt. So definitely get a mat that you can put on the table, so you can have the same table surface that you use at home if you just bring your own mat. Also, to get the best result you can, obviously, the more competitions you enter, the better chance you have of getting a good result. And also, the more you'll get more used to doing multi-blind in competition. And the more competitions you do, there's lower pressure on you for each attempt, and you won't be as sad when you don't get a good result, because there's always next time. And when you're thinking about entering competitions, try to target competitions that will give you a better chance of doing well. So if it's a competition which is more focused on blind solving, you'll probably have an organizer who is going to give you better conditions. And if there's more than one multi-attempt, then obviously that gives you another chance. Yeah, and just to find out what kind of competitions you tend to do better at. I've been to one continental championship. I didn't do very well because, there's quite a lot of people and it was a little bit chaotic. I prefer the smaller competitions where there's less stress. And if there's not many opportunities for competitions near you, just try and organise one yourself. The benefit of being an organiser, you have more control over all these factors. You can choose the venue, you can choose the events, you can choose the schedule, and you can set up the table in a way that works best for the competitors in multi-blind.